All right, all right, all right. So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Capital Raise Strategy Session. The Capital Raise Strategy Session, we are educationally based platform, and what we do, we are, we try to help you and help you to prepare for capital raising, because that's one of the main things that you're going to be doing when you're taking down these acquisitions, right? You got a capital raise. So the one thing that we also do here within the strategy session, we give our homework assignment, and sometimes, last week one of the homework assignments were you had to put together a sample deal package, right? And we ran through the sample deal package. So today, that's what today they were supposed to. Um, Everyone that was here last week was supposed to bring their sample deal package, so that we could run through it, and then and then we're going to move forward. But like my students didn't show up. I got a whole new crowd, so I got a whole new crowd here. Now I can give out some more homework assignment, and that's fantastic, right? And y'all got to come back next week, because I'm gonna hold you to that homework assignment, right? But for now, we're going to jump into the main topic and the main focus for today, and that is we have a special guest speaker. And this guest speaker, I remember when I first got into commercial multifamily, and I used to listen to him on the podcast. And I used to always say to myself, I know if I ever get on his show, I know I must be doing something right, or going in the right direction. And I got on this show, and also have him as my coach and my mentor. So, without further ado, I'm gonna let him introduce himself, and his name is John Casmon. But John, take it away, and let's get into the importance and some of the things that we need for a capital raise.
Hey, Daryl, listen, man, thank you for that warm introduction. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this afternoon. And listen, man, you crushed it. And we talked about, getting you on the show, and you shared that with me. And I think the first thing that jumps to me or jumped to my mind was gratitude. And I think it's really relevant for this conversation with everybody, because a lot of times we focus on what we get out of something, right? So we know what I'm going to get. I'm pursuing something for a benefit that I'm going to get. But when someone tells you that, hey, man, one of my goals was to be a guest on your show, and when you invited me on, that was big. That let me know that I made it. That's great. That was great to hear you say that, Daryl. But it's also great for me to recognize the impact we can have on other people's lives with the work we're doing. And for anyone looking to raise capital, that's the mindset you need to have. It needs to be a mind of service. You've got to come from a place of, how can I help other people? Sometimes helping other people is creating a stage or a platform for them to share their story or share their knowledge. Sometimes it's you sharing your knowledge and information with somebody that can help them make better decisions, that can help them change their financial future, that can help them get the time flexibility, the financial freedom they're looking for. Sometimes it's partner with somebody, help them close a deal or for them to achieve their dreams, right? So when you come from a place of service, great things happen. And if you're going to be raising capital for deals, don't focus on how much money you can make in acquisition fees, or being able to tell people you did a $10 million deal or $20 million deal or whatever. Focus on the people you actually want to serve and how you can help them. Daryl, I was pausing there, man, for dramatic effect, but if you want to say something, you can jump in.
No, I was trying to stop that echo, because there was somebody that came in.
I think somebody came in. You muted them. They're good.
Yeah. Okay. So, but John, I remember, and talking about capital raising, I remember the first time I had the capital raise, and I think I came to you, and I didn't have a lot of time. And and the team that I was on, they had said to me, they were like, hey, how much, how much, how much capital can you raise? I said, I could raise $1 million. And I didn't raise nowhere near $1 million. I wasn't even prepared. And I wasn't, number one, I wasn't prepared. Number two, the time frame that I had, that is, the time frame that I had to raise capital, it was really less than 30 days. I think it was like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You had gave me some advice in reference to that. What would you tell the audience here about capital raising with short time frames, and then also, even with that, what are some of the things that you need when you're talking about capital raising?
So I remember that conversation very clearly. And it's funny because I had another client of mine who called me this morning. We had an early morning call, and they doing the same thing. You know, they've got to close by early June. It's May 24th. They decided last night they're going to do it. And they've got, 10 days. And
Wow.
I, gave them the same thing I gave you, which is first and foremost, you, especially when you're starting out, when you are raising for the first time, you really don't know like who's ready to invest, right? So you don't know what you can raise, and you want to set yourself up for success. And giving yourself 10 days, 14 days, 20 days, that's simply not setting yourself up for success out of the gate. Particularly if you're raising and partner with someone else, because now it's a combination of, well, how well do you know them? And, what's the business plan? Why is there such a rush? There's a lot of questions that come out. And when people feel nervous or feel rushed, our natural human instinct is to retreat or just to do nothing. So the natural reaction is just to say no, because it's easier than saying yes. So with that in mind, you want to set yourself up for success. You want to give yourself enough time. You want to really focus on nurturing your audience. And I think there's four things that I think are really important when it comes to doing this. And the first thing you've got to do is you have to inform your audience about what it is you're doing. And informing means that they can invest in real estate, that they can invest passively in apartments. They don't have to be a landlord. They don't have to be a flipper. They can invest with someone like you so they can learn about, what this is. Well, that information takes time for people to process. These investments are not small. I mean, we're not doing $500, $1,000 investments. These are typically, $50,000 investments, sometimes 25K, but typically a pretty substantial amount of money. So for someone to make a $50,000 decision, the average person you're talking to, this is the biggest check they're going to write that year, right? Outside of buying a house, this is literally the biggest investment, the biggest move they're going to make. Sure, they might have a 401k or whatever that is growing, but it's not like they're sitting there evaluating like, okay, you know what, I'm going to invest $50,000 in my 401k. That's what you're asking them to do. You're asking them to look and make a $50,000 decision. And that is challenging for a lot of people to process, right? Even if you come to grips with it. So you got to inform them first and foremost. After you inform them, you have to give them the information. You have to educate them. You then want to get to the point where they can actually make a decision for themselves. I'm trying to see if I can pull up at this presentation. I can't get to it.
Yeah, feel free. If you want to share your screen, feel free to share your
No,
screen.
not to share. There's just something I wanted to look at. So I got it here.
Okay.
So informing them the opportunity. Second thing is you want to make them intelligent. That means you got to get them the information that makes them comfortable. So getting them intelligent, is, well, what happens in this situation? What is the deal structure? What kind of loan? What kind of loan should we be looking for? You want to set them up so that they feel smart. If they don't feel like they understand the investment, they're not going to invest with you. So they've got to feel intelligent. They've got to feel like they know what's going on. They feel like, they know what to expect. So they have to be informed. They have to feel intelligent. The next thing is you want to gauge their interest. they've got to be interested in this specific opportunity. So now that they're informed, now that they feel intelligent, now you're getting them interested. Okay. You're presenting the actual deal, the actual opportunity. They're having a chance to wrap their head around this. And that sample deal assignment you gave, I think, is a great one, Daryl. If you give someone a sample deal and you set it up in a way to gauge their level of interest, well, now you can get some real feedback. And the beauty of doing it as a sample deal is you get a chance to get a real response without any pressure. There's no deal on the table. There's no 10 days to close, 14 days to close. You're simply saying, hey, well, if I had a deal like this, would you be interested in investing? And they can look at it and they can ask questions and you can let them know, hey, there's no pressure. There's no live deal. I just want to understand better what you're looking for and if this kind of thing is a fit for you. And now they can ask you questions. They can, gauge a little bit more, and you can gauge a little bit more of the kind of questions you're getting. But now you're gauging their interest, right? So you've informed them, you have, gotten them intelligent. Now they're interested. And then finally they can invest and they can be invested once they understand those things. But that is the process everyone takes, right? I've got to be informed that this even exists as an opportunity. I've got to get smart about it. I've got to become intelligent about this opportunity. I have to then understand my interests or gauge my interests. And then finally I can invest. So this is a 4 eyes. This is brand new for me. First time I'm talking about this in person, but it's 4 eyes, right? Inform, intelligence, interest, and then investment. So those are the steps that someone needs to take. And that truly is kind of the blueprint and the pathway you need to walk an investor down. So Daryl, in your case, a lot of times, and what happens for a lot of people is you have a lot of conversations with people and you've informed them that, hey, you're investing in apartments, so they know that you're investing in apartments. They know a little bit, but maybe we haven't deliberately educated them, meaning, have we been sending them articles? Have we had conversations to gauge their actual knowledge about apartment investing? Are they just on our email list? Do we know if they're, what questions they have? So they're somewhat intelligent, but maybe they have better questions, right? And then from there, we try to jump straight to the third one, which is the interest level. Hey, I got this deal. You're interested. We need to gauge all that up front, right? We want to know up front because I want to know what questions you have. I really want the answer to the test. What I'm trying to do is set it up where it's like, what kind of returns are you expecting? What kind of risk tolerance do you have? And if I bring a deal that fits that box, would you be interested in investing? And if you can check those boxes, then, but when you find that deal, it's going to be much easier to go to someone and say, hey, we talked about investing in deals that had, 7% annual cash flow, that had a 15 plus IRR, and that were in, growing markets in the country. I've got this great deal we just came across, checks all those boxes. We got a great team in place. We're taking investments right now. Why don't you take a look at this and see if you want to join us? That's a much easier conversation than, hey, I know we talked about real estate. I got this great deal. What's an IRR? Right? If they don't know what an IRR is, if they don't understand why this part of Houston versus that part of Dallas, if they don't understand those kind of things, what happens is we just start to second guess and question again. Our natural fight or flight instincts kick in. And if you don't feel intelligent, if you don't feel informed, it's much easier just to say no. So I think you need to spend more time focusing on prepping and educating your potential investors so that you can get them comfortable and ready to invest with you.
Fantastic. Now, since you mentioned that prepping, I want to step back just a little bit, and I would like to ask this question here because we have a lot of brand new investors, and I know I'm looking right now at the screen. We have a lot of experience here, but we also have a lot of new investors. John, when I first started out on my first deal, I did not have any type of a system that is a CRM system. And what I was doing, I was copy paste. I had over 300 people and I'm up here copy paste. John, for a new person, never done this before, what would you say they need to get started for raising capital?
You definitely need a system. I mean, copy and paste. Yeah, I remember that, man. You're cracking me up because I remember these early conversations. You definitely want to have a system, and the system doesn't have to be super elaborate. So what I would say starting out is the bare bones minimum. You need Excel or Google Sheets. So pick which, they're free. So Google Sheets or Excel. On that, I want to track my contacts and conversations that I'm having with people. And then you need some sort of email CRM. So MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, HubSpot. You pick which one you want, but you need one of those at least. There's a free version of many of those. I know MailChimp has a free version up to like I think 250 users or something like that. But get one of those, because what will happen is that will allow you to send mass emails. And what Daryl's talking about is Daryl's literally saying, hey, I got a brand new deal. He would write an email, send it to one person, copy that email, hit new email, put a new email address in there, change the name, and then send it to the second person. And he did this for everybody. And I'm like,
Yes, I
whoa,
did.
what? What? So instead, you get a MailChimp or an Active Campaign. You put all your contacts in there, and you can put them in list, or you can categorize them. And now you can blast everyone. So I can send an email to 5,000 people at one time, one email. And you can actually do what's called merge tags, where if I wanted to feel more customized, I can put hello first name. And there's a little tag, and it will pull in everyone's first name based on how they're in your contacts. And if there isn't a name, it'll just say hello dash. So you can do that, write your email, and then you'd have your button or your call for call for action. Hey Bridget, you want to go on
Sorry
mute
about
real
that.
quick? Oh, you
Yeah,
good?
I muted it.
Okay. But that's an easy way to do it. If you can do it that way, you can set up in your system, and now you're sending email to a lot of people at one time, as opposed to, again, the very time consuming and cumbersome approach of copying and pasting email, especially if you got like 100 people you're sending it to. I mean, I can imagine. First of all, not only is it bad, but it actually is going to ding you, because they're going to start to see that as spam. If you send an email like that, especially using your Gmail or your Outlook or Yahoo account, whatever, if you keep copying and pasting that same message, they're going to treat that as spam, and it's going to hurt your ability to send future emails. If you send it from, again, a MailChimp or a system that is set up for bulk email, that's going to work much better. So you definitely want to make sure you have something set up there.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, believe me, I learned the hard way on that one. So definitely, so just to reiterate a little bit, for new people, if you don't have that experience, like John said, start out with something that's either free or close to free as possible, right? And as you grow, as your database grow, then you will know when it's time for you to move up to the bigger leagues, right? So John, one more question here. I wanted to you had said about one thing is about the sample deal package, educating everyone, educating the investors in reference to capital raising and so forth. How often should we be touching our investors, and what should we be touching them with?
Well, think about it back to the service standpoint, right? So what I would like to say, and the way you can think about this, and it kind of depends based on where you're at, but we try to stay top of mind. Think about this like a product or a service. If you have, let's say you have a tire repair shop. If you have a tire repair shop, what you really want is anytime a customer has a tire repair need, you want them to think of you, right? You want them to think of you, and you want them to come in and call you up or bring their car in to get service, right? It's the same kind of thing here. It's fine that you tell people one time that you're investing in apartments, but that is not going to keep you top of mind. So you need to touch them more frequently. And more importantly, you need to keep offering value to them. So instead of focusing on you and yourself and, hey, we offer apartments, you need to talk to them about what's going on in their world. I'll give you a real example. I had a same client I had this morning. They were getting ready to announce that deal. And I was looking at the email, and I said, I don't like the way you guys have written this email. I said, change this, change that, change this. And one of the big things I did was I had them change the subject line. Subject line was new deal alert. We're under contract. And I told them, no one cares. Why would anyone care that you're under contract? I care about me, not you. So I had them change that to New deal alert, new investment opportunity, 29 units, close to $1.5 billion development. Wait a minute. You're telling me I can invest in 29 units close to $1.5 billion development? Right? When we got into the email, I told them, take out half the stuff they wrote. Give me the top bullet points. Top bullet points. Huge development right next door. The owners or the general partners are investing 25% of the capital. We believe in this deal. We got skin in the game, right? That's what that's saying. I told them to highlight that this had a high floor. A lot of the units were already renovated, that they had a 10-year fixed agency loan, right? So I'm like, those are the 4 bullet points, because what you're trying to get to is you're trying to communicate why someone should care and why they should be interested. You just saying you got a new deal. Well, so what, right? And that's the mindset. So when you talk about how frequently you should touch them, as much as possible without turning them off, but you need to have value when you do reach out. If you're just reaching out and saying, hey, um, you know, we're looking at apartments, we don't have anything yet, that doesn't help me. I don't have a sales background, by the way. But if you understand, what people are looking for, then it makes it easier to connect with them. So for me, for instance, we do like a bi or every other week. Bi-weekly is always a weird word for me, because I'm like, is it twice a week? Is it twice a month? But we do a bi-weekly newsletter. So every other week we send out a newsletter, and usually we highlight our recent podcast episodes. If I was a guest on any podcast, we communicate that. But then also I'll try to have like an intro paragraph where I try to give something of what I think is pretty good value. So we got one going on tomorrow. We're actually doing a capital raising workshop this weekend. So we're highlighting that capital raising workshop. And what we're talking about is, most people that I meet have one of 3 fears. They either fear that they don't have the network to raise capital for real estate. They fear talking to friends and family or raising money from friends and family, or they fear that they're not experienced enough or educated enough to go out and raise raise capital at this point. So in that email, we say, hey, if one of these 3 things is a challenge that you have, you want to come to our workshop, because we're going to be highlighting why those things don't matter. And I'll give you all a good preview since we're here. But a good chunk of it is, one, it's always about expanding your network. You want to engage your current network, but you want to also expand your network. Your friends and family are great, but that's not necessarily your core audience. We'll come back to that a little bit later. When it comes to, who you can always network. Even the most shy person can network. You don't have to be this life of the party kind of, personality to build a powerful network. And I think that's a limiting belief a lot of people have, that you just kind of need to get over. And then when it comes to friends and family, it's like, listen, you start with friends and family, but again, that's not your audience. So we figure out how we navigate past that. So when we talk about the touch points, you got to understand your audience and what they're looking for, but also what do you have to say? And part of what, Daryl, I know we talked about before, is like, sometimes you got to make up stuff to say, right? Because you want to stay top of mind. And I'll give everyone one great example here. Let's say you had a conversation. Let's say you and I were talking, Daryl, you say, hey, John, I'm investing in multifamily. I'm working with other investors. It's something that you'd be interested in learning more about. And I say, yes, great. You add me to your email list, but I don't hear from you for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, right? 6 months from now, you finally have a deal. You send me an email. Hey, got this deal. I might be saying to myself, who the hell is Daryl? Right? Depending on relationship, right? If I just met you at an event or somewhere out, who is this guy? What? I ain't heard from you or seen you, talk to you in 6 months. Who is this guy? Right? So that might be my first response. If I do know, I'm like, oh, this guy's got to do it. I haven't thought about it since we talked 6 months ago. So even though I know you, it's like, oh yeah, I haven't really thought about it, right? I also may not know how this helps me. And 3 things have to be true for someone to invest in your deal. The first is they have to believe in the power of real estate investing to change or impact their financial future. If they don't believe in real estate investing to help them achieve their own goals, they're not going to invest with you. And that may seem obvious to all of us, right, who are here on this call, but think about it. You got people in your family, people who friends, maybe a spouse, that they know real estate can help other people, but they don't think it can help them, right? Maybe because they don't have the money, maybe because, hey, my aunt had a property and, people tore it up. So, she lost money, or they repoed, my cousin's car and it's hot. Like, if you have a negative experience and that's what your connection is to real estate investing, then you may be turned off on it. So if you don't believe it can help you, most people believe real estate can help people, but they may not believe it can help them. If they don't believe it can help them, they ain't investing with you, period. And that's the first thing you got to address. So they got to believe in real estate investing. Second, they got to believe in multifamily or whatever it is strategy you're doing. So if you were doing senior living or, self-storage, whatever it is, they have to believe in that strategy. So that's why you got to get people. Well, why apartments? Apartments seem really risky right now. I heard somebody lost 3,200 units. So how are you going to overcome that, right? You got to let them know, hey, well, here's the objections. You got to prepare for these objections, right? So they got to believe in apartment investing, why it's a great time to invest in apartments. They've got to believe that. Finally, the third thing is they need to believe in you. Why should I invest with you? And that's going to be based on your own knowledge, your own experience, the team you've put together, the deal that you're able to source. They got to believe in those three things before they really consider a deal. I'm not investing in a deal if I don't believe in real estate, multifamily, and then the person who's bringing me the opportunity.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I'm going to take some questions from the audience. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand. I know Antonio had his hand up, then he put his hand down. Antonio, you still have a question? Okay, I think Antonio must have went to the bathroom.
And
All
Daryl,
right.
I've got a couple here
No.
in my inbox too. So
I did have a question. So yeah, John, I definitely connect with everything you're saying. But what I like to ask are questions not of what things you're doing today, but what did you do in the beginning? Like, so how are you? You're saying like, don't reach out to people and just say, hey, I don't have a deal, I'm looking at whatever. Like, what were you doing in the first 6 months or a year or 2 years or
yeah,
in the very beginning? Like, what was the content you were sharing?
great
What was
question.
that relationship?
I'm a firm believer in creating a content platform, and there's really a few reasons of doing that. One, it's going to help you meet and connect with new people. Again, we talk about expanding our network, and I think it's a great way to expand your network. So if you're creating content, especially an interview-based content platform, you now have content you can share with your network. So for instance, Daryl might take this and say, hey, I sat down with John Casmon. We talked about, whatever, right? He might tailor it depending on the audience. If he's trying to talk to potential passive investors, he might say, hey, I talked to John Casmon. We talked about what investors are looking for and the concerns they have in this ever-changing climate, right? And he might have this video. So he's educating people based on this conversation. So that's one thing, is creating content. I started with a blog post, or blog, I should say, realized I had a really hard time writing blogs consistently. I could do this. I could turn on a camera, well, not so much as a camera, but I could turn on a mic and I could talk to people. But sitting down and just like writing a blog, it's tough, man. I didn't know what to talk about. Like, some of my blogs were all over the place, just random thoughts I had, and I would just write and be like, this doesn't help anybody. So the podcast helped me get a little bit of focus, but also consistency. And then that was some of the content that I would share with my audience was, hey, he just spoke to, again, Daryl, and he talked about his first syndication deal, or he talked about whatever, right? And that's what I could do. If you don't have that, another great idea, I mentioned not having a deal, but you can flip that and share almost an update as far as what you've done. Hey, this month I've looked at, 5 deals. We toured 2 properties. We put an offer at 1. We thought it was a great fit at, $2 million. The owner was pretty strict on having 2.5 million. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get anything done, but we're continuing to hunt. We're going to keep looking and keep bringing opportunities. If you have any questions about these deals or what we're looking for, I'd be happy to jump on a call, right? That may not, in your mind, you're like, you've done all that work, but you may not think it's worthy to give an update to your investors. But what it does, it shows them, I'm out here hunting. I'm hunting. I'm looking. And by the time you do find a deal, if I've been getting updates from you that, in March, I looked at 5 properties. In April, I looked at 8 properties. In May, I looked at 12 properties. In June, maybe I went on vacation. I looked at 8 properties again. In July, hey, we finally found one. Oh, shit. This guy's been, for the last 4-5 months, I've been getting updates. They've been looking at all these deals, looking at 30, 40 deals. He finally got one. I bet you it's a pretty good deal then. He looked at 40 deals. I bet you this is a pretty good deal, right? So that's the mindset and the psyche. That's how you stay top of mind. So that's, again, it depends on your audience and what they're having issues with. You might even go through and give them a specific update. Hey, you know what? Underwriting a bunch of deals. While we liked XYZ, we didn't really like DSCR. What is DSCR? And then you might break that down, and maybe that's the content you give. It doesn't have to be just email. I know I've been talking mainly about email. It could be video content. It could be social media. I mean, there are lots of different ways you can engage it, but I would strongly urge everyone to set up email, because that's really where you're going to focus on the deal. When you announce the deal, you want to announce through email. People are going to need to see the email to subscribe, to go on whatever portal or system you're using to register. So I would spend a lot of time getting people comfortable with the email exchange. It's also more professional. So, that's something I would definitely push people on.
Cool, cool.
Okay,
You
thank
see,
you.
you have some questions that were sent to you
Yeah, just a couple in here. I'll answer them real quick. So first one here, from Jim. What's up, buddy? He says, how much time is normal for most syndications? That's a great question. It kind of depends on, the deal parameters, but I would say typically, and I'm assuming you mean to get it closed and not the whole period, but to get it closed from the time, you kind of get the offer accepted to closing, I would say you normally have like 45 to 60 days on the agreement. So that if you have an LOI accepted or a verbal agreement, let's just say you kind of unofficially start the clock there. And then once you get the PSA, the purchase sale agreement, once you get that signed, a lot of times you'll have, I've seen as low as 30 days, but typically you're doing 45 or 60 days in the PSA. So I would say you're typically, and you probably get 1 or 2 extensions built in, just depending on the time frame. But I would say about 60 to 90 days is usual from the time you kind of have an agreement in place until the time you actually get the deal closed.
Fantastic. Go ahead, Jim. I see your hand up.
Hey, John, great to see you. Really happy to have you here. But that question is a leading question, going back to the Chinese proverb, when's the best time to plant a tree? And, so many of these deals, particularly as a newer capital raiser, someone's going to come to you very last minute. And it's very, very, very difficult, if not impossible, for you to raise capital like that. And it doesn't put you in a good position to offer value as opposed to just pressure selling. And so I was really leading up to, when do you start doing this? How long should you expect it to take? And, what are, and you outlined a lot of these steps, but kind of what are the steps you want to take before you actually say, okay, John, now I'm presenting a deal to you. I've got a real deal.
Yeah, listen, you're spot on, Jim, and I tell you, it's one thing that always frustrates me, and we see it all the time, and it's not going to change. You're going to get that phone call from someone asking, "Can you help them out?" And they got this deal, and they've got to close it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and they need help. And part of it is because they're not doing any of the stuff we're talking about, and they don't have a good gauge on kind of their investor database, or they put their team together, and someone on their team didn't have a good gauge on their investor database. And I think it's a little more challenging now. And Jim, I'm not sure if you're seeing this as well, but I think it's harder now to raise capital than it was, say, 6 months ago or 9 months ago. So you need to be, have more time. You need to have more conversations. You need to really be more involved if you want to have success. From a timing standpoint, again, 60 to 90 days or so from the syndication. But if someone calls you and they got to close in 2 weeks, that's a really, really tight time frame. What I would say is you are always raising capital. And for any of you who were at the GOB Network conference last year, you heard, a couple of guys I was on a panel with talk about this a lot. But you're always raising capital, always. I'm raising capital right now. Like, as I'm talking to you guys, if anybody wants to invest in one of my upcoming deals, I'll make sure you get added to our new investor list, right? And I'm kind of joking, but I'm not joking, because the reality is you're always raising capital. You're always having conversations. And when I say you're raising capital, I really like to think of it as attracting capital. I don't like to do, I'm not a salesman. I don't do the sales pitch. I'm not going to go out there and tell you why, you need to pull your money out of the stock market and, get this 16% IRR return with me. The reality is I'm trying to find people who are again, what I just tell you, they got to believe in real estate. They got to believe in multifamily. Then they just got to believe in me. Who's great at that? Everybody on this Zoom right now believes in real estate to help them achieve their financial future. Believe in multifamily. So the last thing I need to accomplish in order for you to consider investing in a deal with me is you got to believe in me. I got to sell you on me, right? Daryl, same thing. All Daryl's got to do is sell you, which you should be sold on Daryl if you're here already. So you should be sold on Daryl, right? So the only difference may be, and this is something that comes up all the time, is most of you are probably looking to be the general partners and not looking to be LPs. So you may be hesitant of investing because you're thinking, well, what happens if I get my deal and I've already put my money and tied it up in this deal, right? That's probably the hesitation. That's an objection. Got to be ready to overcome that objection. I had a coaching client of mine. That's exactly the predicament she was facing. And I had a conversation with her. I said, well, listen, what do you think is going to help you better? You with zero experience finding a deal and then going to investors saying, hey, I got this deal. It's my first syndication. Do you want to invest with me? Or investing in one of my deals, becoming an LP, and then sharing your experience with them and saying, hey, I just invested in this deal. I'm making passive income and I'm going to be doing more of this. If you're interested in joining me on my next opportunity, I'm happy to share that information when I come across that next deal. Which one's more persuasive to you? So I would say your track record, right? And it's not fluff. It's not a sales pitch. What I'm saying is, when you're an LP, you have real experience, and now you're sharing your experience, right? And hopefully, if you're going to invest as an LP, if you really want to be a GP, you're doing so with the intent of learning, to be able to ask questions. Hey, why do we do it that way? Or, hey, what's really going on with the property management company? Or, hey, what happened here, right? So you can get that information and you're growing, right? You're going to become more confident. And as you're more confident, it's going to be easier for you to go out there and do your own deals. So I would just say, it's really important for you to understand kind of where you're at in your journey, how long it takes to do these deals, but also to build it all up. And a lot of that comes down to, again, I call them the 3 C's to attract capital. It's confidence, credibility, and connections. And I will tell you, if you can get to either a co-GP role or you can be an LP, it's going to build your confidence and it's going to build your credibility, because you're now telling people, you invest in apartments, you're in on this deal, no matter what your role is or whatever size it is, you're in on the deal. And then it's just a matter of you being able to take that opportunity to grow, to learn, and get yourself in a position where you can be in the driver's seat if that's what your goal is.
Fantastic.
So Daryl,
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, if I could interject one other thing. John said something, touched on it, but didn't go into detail. And 2 of the biggest mistakes that people make in trying to raise capital in number 1, we just discussed, trying to do it too fast. So you want to start today for a deal that you may get a year from now. And number 2 is you suddenly think you have a deal, or you actually do have one, and now you need to email everyone on your list, and you're going to email 100 emails or 1,000 emails, and you're going to get blocked. Not just because you sent the same email to everyone, as John mentioned, but even with CRMs like Constant Contact, Active Campaign, MailChimp, all of them, they will block you if you haven't warmed up your email campaigns. So start emailing 5 people a day, then 20 people, then 40 people, then 80 people, and slowly warm up. Even if the email is just, hey, I want you guys to know that I'm starting a new career in real estate, and I thought about you and wanted to see if you'd be interested in hearing about my journey. And you send that first email out to ever how many people, and you start doing that on a regular basis, so that when you need to hit it hard, they're not going to block you, because they will absolutely block you. I see it happen time and time and time again for the people that are raising money for the first, second, or third time, and they get blocked by MailChimp, and then they go open an active campaign, and then they get blocked by active campaign, they go open a constant contact, and then the next thing you know, there's nowhere else to go, and you can't raise money. So, and with that, I
Fantastic.
will shut up.
For those who don't know who Jim Biggs is, Jim is the founder, the creator of the GOB network.
No, I would rather be known as friend to Daryl Murphy and John Casmon.
It doesn't change what Daryl said though.
Exactly, right. So, but I do want to I do want to say one thing in reference to what John had mentioned about everyone wanting to be a GP. Okay. A lot in today's economy, and John, tell me how you feel about this. In today's economy, with the market the way that it is, it's not as easy today for a person that doesn't have no experience in raising capital to be able to just jump on a team now to want to be a GP. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely harder to raise capital. I would say I think there's two ways of looking at it, right? So because it's harder to raise capital, I think operators and leaders of deals are looking more broadly to find help raising capital. So I think that there may be more opportunities, but I think it's harder. So for a newer a newer syndicator, meaning again, a lot of folks who are here, newer capital raiser, I think it's going to be a challenge for you because again, the folks who can raise money and have that together, they may not need you. You may be getting those last minute calls because people thought they were in a good spot and they realize, oh man, we're 500,000 short. You know, we need help. So they'll take whatever they feel like they can get. But I think it kind of exposes some bigger issues and concerns. So in general, I would definitely be more cautious. I think your investors are going to be more cautious. I think they're asking more questions. Again, when you see the market softening, I mean, there was I didn't get to read the article, but one of my investors sent me an email last night, and he was like, "Hey, there was a scathing article in the Wall Street Journal about syndicators, like." Made me think about our deals and like, how are we doing? So I had to respond to him. And then I'm like, I actually wrote this article. I didn't read the Wall Street Journal article, but I wrote an article that talked about, again, that deal in Houston and gave my perspective on it. Right. And part of it is it's leadership is what it really boils down to. When it comes to investors or even your partners, you want to lead them. You don't want to be hoping and guessing and letting them drag you around. You want to have a very clear vision and you want to be leading them, and that's part of the process. So it's tougher for newer capital raisers, but I think that also creates opportunity because there will be people who need help doing deals, and if you can find someone, they may be willing to give you a shot. Because again, I just think that group. I'll give you an example. I won't say the names, but I got a text yesterday, had to call today, really well-known operator, friend of mine. He called me and asked me if I would help on a deal. We talked about this deal 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, and I passed. I like the deal, but we're not really focusing on that side of the business. We're focusing on doing our own deals. Well, he texted me back saying this other guy that we know who's extremely well known, and that's all they do is raise money. They couldn't raise anything for this deal. And I'm like, wait, what? Like that guy? No. And so we had to call this morning. I was like, well, one, what happened? Like, is there something I don't know? He's like, they've got this long process now, and they looked at it. They said they were going to be able to bring 2 million, and nothing. And so he said, hey, we really need help. They said we have enough to close, so it's not like, again, and this is my first thing, right? I'm not the in case of emergency call John Casmon to save you. Like, that's not what we're doing. But, if there's a longer, if I can have a longer ramp, so I can get a month, 2 months, 3 months to get in front of my investors, and there's some patience to do that, then I might be interested. It's also the market I love, and I like the business plan. So we are seriously considering it, but that's a call that I got 2 months ago, passed on. It's been rare in the last 2-3 years if I pass that someone felt like they had to call me back and say, hey man, especially again, this is someone who has been investing for at least as long as I've been investing, because I've known them, from the moment I came into it, and they have a 10-figure portfolio. So it's not like a smaller investor doing their first deal. So the point in all that is to say, I think that more people will need help. So I do think there will be opportunity. Going back to what Jim was getting at, you've got to prepare for it. Preparing for that opportunity means nurturing your relationships, engaging your investors, letting them know what you're doing, educating them so that they can be informed and ready to invest once you have that deal. If you get a deal in your inbox tomorrow, most of you probably would not be able to raise money. You may think you can because you know people, but have those people ask you intelligent questions about investing. Because I'm gonna tell you what, if anyone is seriously thinking about investing $50,000 with you, they're gonna ask some questions. There's been one investor I've had in the last 6 years that has invested with me without really ever asking me a question. And that person set up some time to talk to me, and they just felt like they should talk to me, but they were very comfortable with me. And part of the reason they're very comfortable with me is they have been listening to the podcast for a long time. They just had a good feel, got a good feel of who I was and my character and all of that. And they were sold. They just wanted to talk to me first. They just felt like I shouldn't write a $50,000 check without, speaking to this guy live. And it was a very interesting phone call because that's literally what he said to me. He's like, hey, man, I didn't have any questions about the deal. Thought you did a great job presenting it. I just felt like I should try to talk to you live one time before sending this money. I was like, okay, well, did you have any questions? He's like, nope, I'm good, man. Like I said, just felt like I should at least hear your voice live one time, do the bare minimum of due diligence. And I was like, okay. And he invested, and it's been a great with him ever since, right? I don't get that very often, and I doubt you're going to get that. On the flip side, I get people who, I had a guy who asked me, he asked 12 questions, wrote them out. I answered all 12 questions. He came back with another 15 questions and didn't end up investing. And it's just drill sergeant, and those are not investors you want either, right? Because what happens with those people is they may have unrealistic expectations of the relationship or what you're doing. And again, if something were to veer off a plan, you don't want somebody who's a partner looking at you saying, hey, you said you were going to do XYZ, how come you didn't do, like, there's enough pressure to execute on these deals as it is between economic changes, property management, construction. It's not as easy, right? And to have an investor who's just chastising you, it's probably not the kind of partner you want. I know starting out, all money feels like it's good, but it's some people you just don't necessarily want to have as partners. So that process of asking questions and understanding the intelligence level or education level, that's a two-way vetting process. If they've got beliefs that you're going to make them a multi-millionaire off of this one deal, that may not be the person you want to invest with. If it's their last money, if they're taking everything they've got and putting it with you, I wouldn't take it. I want to make sure that they're realistic expectations, that they understand there's risk involved. No matter what we say, there's risk involved in all these deals. And, that we're able to answer their questions and it feels like an overall good fit. So that's a two-way vetting process, but you got to start that now. And it doesn't have to be super pretty. Like I said, I would use Excel or, Google Sheets and just track it. That's what I did starting out. I used MailChimp to just add all the contacts. I asked for permission. So ask permission to put them on the list. Once you get that, put them in your MailChimp or whatever, and then start sending updates. Hey, here's what's going on. Here's what I'm doing. Or, hey, I attended this. We just had our Midwest Summit, and a guy named Ray Higdon spoke, and he said something I think is really great. He said, one thing you can always do if you're trying to find content for your audience is do something that he calls ILT: invest, learn, teach. And what he means is you invest in your own education and knowledge. Okay. Attending this session today, you learn, take good notes, learn this information. You turn around and you teach it to the people you want to engage with. So whether that's on social media, whether that is an email to your followers or to your subscribers, whether that is, a video or something else you do, but turn around and teach them. So take this information, learn it, and then teach somebody else this. That's a great way to stand out and stay relevant. So the key is there's plenty of information that you can be sharing with your network. You just have to make it a priority and to serve them.
Fantastic. John, we're about to end, but I want you to please plug your podcast, tell everybody what you do, so that, and also put your contact information in the chat just in case
Yeah.
if someone wants to reach out to you.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. I'll do that last. But man, so thank you, Daryl. Podcast is called Multifamily Insights. It is available anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's the #1 rated multifamily podcast, and we just passed 500 episodes a couple weeks ago. So I'm super excited about that. My website is casmoncapital.com. I mentioned that we're having a live raising capital workshop this Sunday. We're going to talk about the blueprint. So you'll hear me talk about the 4 I's. You're going to hear me talk about the 3 C's: confidence, credibility, connections. More specifically, how to build your confidence, how to build your credibility, and how to build your connections. And then some of what Daryl and I were talking about here, the framework. How do you take some of the systems, the email marketing, the the content that you can create? How do you set that up so it's systematized and somewhat automated? Because at the end of the day, you have to treat this like a business. And if you're trying to remember, I don't know how many people attend conferences and stuff, but if you're trying to remember everybody you ever met and you're trying to send an email, oh, you know what? I met Jim at Midwest Summit. He said he was interested. That's hard. It's hard. So instead, set it up where it's automated. And I'm going to give you guys a great example. Okay. If you go to my website, we've got a couple of things. One is our sample deal. So if you go to the link I just put in the chat box, we have a sample deal package available. You can download that sample deal, especially for those of you who did not do the assignment that Daryl gave last week. You can use that, borrow, get inspiration from it, and create it for yourself. But that'll also add you to our email list, and you'll get kind of some automated emails from us. But the cool thing is you'll get access to some of the things we're working on. You get access to future deals and opportunities from that. So you can check that out. You can check out our live workshop as well. It's going to be a 3-hour event. We're going to cover a lot of great content to help you, really have kind of the foundation for raising capital moving forward. And I think it's going to be, again, a great opportunity for you to scale your business if that is something that, you're seriously committed to doing. But check that out. You can, I don't like to give a whole bunch of handles. I figure the more you give people, the less they actually do. So check out that website. I think that's the best thing you can do. And then from there, you should be able to reach me and get the rest of my contact information.
All right. John, I want to thank you very much for coming today to the Capital Raise Strategy session. You gave us some excellent information. And everyone, for those of you who did not do the homework, now you got a sample deal package that you can use, right? So I'm not going to let this go. Next week, I want to see the sample deal package, right? And we had 30 something people here today. So I expect to see every last one of you back into this classroom next week. All right. Listen, thank you all for coming. John, thank you so much.
And Daryl, before we drop, I just want to drop that link. I mentioned I saw Wakefield drop the Wall Street Journal article. I just want to drop.
Yeah, I read that article too.
Yeah, this is the one I wrote, and it was intended to be a bit broader. I didn't want to. I'm not a doom and gloom kind of person, so I don't like to talk bad or ill about nobody. But I think the more important thing is for us to learn what we could take away from the situation. So that's the article is written from that lens. It's more about what can we learn from this versus trying to you know, again, I think there's so many negative people who just can't wait to be right, you know, who just want to see people suffer and fail. And I just hate that mentality, man. Like, I'm
Right.
not about that. I want everybody to win. You shining doesn't make me shine less. So let's win, let's learn, and there's gonna be opportunities though.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. See you back here next week. Next Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time at the Capital Raise Strategy Session. See you all back here. Thank you very much, John. And thank you very much, Jim. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.
I'll see you in a few minutes, Daryl.
Okay, sounds good.
Bye. Thanks, John.